animal operates on involuntary will because it doesn't have will. It only have instincts. You put the grass before a cow, what it does? It doesn't say that, well, 2 hours back I had plenty of lunch, I should not be eating now. No, it just gets up, smell. If the smell is good, keep eating. When his stomach is full, it go back and lay down and chew the cud. So it's if you come to my home, I come to your home, you may ask, brother, why don't you take lunch? I said, no, I'm not taking lunch. Did you have lunch? No, I didn't have lunch. Then why? I decided not to take it. It's not an involuntary act. It's a decision I made. That's because, I am created with that one. The human will by creation is voluntary. As a human understanding by creation is cognitive. When God creates understanding, He endows it with innate ideas and laws of thought, by virtue of which it is an intelligent faculty. God has created the human will with a disposition of self-determination. Can you think of an Encyclopedia Britannica without any information in it? No, it cannot. Because the same thing, if God has created man with understanding, then there should be things that you understand. If the understanding is a vessel, then the vessel must be full of things to understand. God does not create a vacuum inside and then say you are understanding. Then you say, what am I understanding? It's very interesting, even a little child born, the child begins to understand things very fast. In 3, 4, 5 months, some stranger comes and takes the child cries. That means the child already recognized familiar faces, father, mother and few people. Immediately. Because God has created the child with understanding, with understanding. The child immediately can understand when it is cold or hot. The child cries if it's feeling cold. The child urinates wet. The child cries, informing the mother, I am wet. When the child is hungry, the child cries, informing the mother in its language, I am hungry, I need food. When the child is sleepy, crying, immediately the mother should come to put the child to sleep. This is all understanding. This understanding, the way we communicate only changes. The child cries when it is hungry. We don't cry when we are hungry. Because we can express it in many other ways. The child cannot express it at that time. So God has given the child that child language. The mother understands it, and any sensible person understands it. The cry of the child for every situation is different. You probably know it. Yes. Listening at the cry, the mother can say he is wet, he is hungry, he is bored. Can. The animals, they make noises. Yes. We grew up in the village, therefore my mother used to hatch eggs, and when the birds come that take the chicks, the mother will make a particular noise, the hen and all the chicks will run right into it. See that? When the mother hen finds some food, it's another sound. Then all of them come to pick it up. They have their, that's God has registered in their can say in their mind, because they don't have a mind. In their brain. I think they have brain, right? Yeah, we sometimes like brain fry of mutton, so they must have brain. But I don't know what information they have in there. Very little. So God created man with understanding. That means there were information in it. With a will, therefore, the ability to exercise the will. With feelings, therefore, the ability to, the feelings of pleasure, the feelings of anger, the feelings of depression, the feelings of all that. It's very interesting how children express these things. Some children, of course, they only show anger, but they are all blessed with the ability. The creation of a finite mind or spirit implies the creation of holiness. Adam was created with a spirit, while the matter moves from without by other forces. Spirit moves from within, that is from the power that is within. It is self-moving motion of Indra. The instant Adam was created, he had all the characteristics that distinguishes spirit from matter. When Eve was produced before Adam, what did he do? Did he eat her like an apple? No, because he now knows that this is not an apple. But what did he do? He looked at her, I am sure he smiled. Then he made the most important statement anybody ever could make about a wife. She is now bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh, not over. She shall be called Mrs. Adam because taken from Mr. Adam. She shall be called a woman. W-O, then a man, woman, because she's taken from a man. And they are the most important statements. He had never seen a marriage before. He had even never seen a woman before. God even didn't say that, hey, this is the girl that I have made for you, take a real look. No, nothing is to be stated because Adam was created with true knowledge. So he was able to express. Self-motion is self-determination. And self-determination is inclination or disposition. Adam was created with the disposition of holiness. The scripture terms it a living soul. So God created man a self-moving soul which involves self-determination. Adam was to move towards the disposition of holiness using his ability to move. But then came the problem. Satan comes in between. Yes. If holiness is not created, then the creature improves the creator's work, right? Suppose God did not create holiness and then man becomes holy, what does it mean that? Man is improving the creation of God. That man can never do. Man can never improve the creation of God. Some people think they can, make it better. Somebody said that if I was God, I would have given a flap for the ears. Because when my wife starts talking, I can just put it on. But God didn't give one. God didn't, because God knows what you will do with it. You will not be shutting it out when your wife talks, but you will be shutting it out when God talks. That's when you will shut it out. Augustine, the city of God, argues, was the good inclination of the good angels created along with them, or did they exist for a time without it? If along with themselves, then doubtless it was created by him who created them. And as soon as ever they were created, they attached themselves to him who created them, with that love which created in them. But if the good angels existed for a time without a good inclination, and produced it in themselves without God's interference, then it follows that they made themselves better than God made them. That can never happen. Therefore, we could reasonably conclude that both in the case of man and God, from the moment God created them, the love of God was shed abroad in their hearts by the Holy Spirit which is given to them. Adam immediately loved God. It has to be there. If there was no love and later Adam developed it, then we can say that God, you know what? I made me better. You didn't create me with love, but I made me with love. Who can say that? It can never happen. No. Yes. It can never happen. The dependent nature of finite holiness implies that it is created. Okay, uncreated independent holiness is possible only in a self-existing and self-sustaining being. Holiness in the creature is derived from the Creator. All positive virtues proceeded from God as a gift to man or angels. There can be no choice of virtue unless God gives it to them. Reason shows that the first existence of a virtue cannot be given from man himself, because man is a created being. A created being who didn't have existence before cannot create any virtue. It cannot, because all these virtues have to exist in God himself. God said, if God so loved us, we ought to love one another. The base is God's love. Be ye holy because I am holy. Another reason. Yes. Everything God commands us to do or say, behind it is the reason that God has created us with that capacity, and we lost it maybe because of sin. Romans 11:26-27 says, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob. A deliverer has to come to make man better. Man cannot make himself better. Anselm, an old theologian, argues that if God had created man or angels without the disposition for holiness, man would remain forever without an inclination for holiness. If God created man, Adam, without an inclination for holiness, whatever will happen, man will do, he will never have an inclination for holiness. Never. Man is able to love God, love holiness only because God has created man with that inclination. So consequently, the first inclination of the will must be given to the will by the Creator who made the will, ex nihilo. Since a God of goodness and holiness cannot give a bad inclination, he must have given a good inclination. How great statement that is. That holiness is creatable in man is proved by the fact of regeneration and sanctification. The regeneration of the soul is the origination of holiness a second time within man. This is the meaning of the statement, like giving a heart of flesh instead of stone, renewing the spirit, working in you to will. They show that God produces the holy disposition. In another sense, when a man is saved, we are given a new disposition, we are given a new spirit, we are given everything only because God originally had given them and we lost them by our sin. That's the only reason. Otherwise it cannot be. Sanctification proves the creativity of holiness. Sanctification is the increase of holiness. No Christian augments his own holiness by his own isolated decision. The law of sanctification is stated in John 15:4, abide in me and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself, except you abide in me, you cannot bear fruit. Our ability to bear fruit is on our willingness to abide in him. Fruit is a vital part of the plant. Fruit is not a mechanical product. This is the reason why the branch has to abide in a vine, for that ensures the continuation of the vital relationship. Holiness in like manner is a vital fruit of the Spirit, and it is possible only when we abide in him. Otherwise we can never be holy. There are so many so-called holy people in the world. I don't want to name anybody, but every religion has some holy people. You look at the picture they have, there's a halo around. Where did they get it from? They grew it from themselves. Yeah. How can you grow something? There is no provision for it. If God does not make provision for teeth for a child, when the child grow up, that child will not have any teeth. Some men don't have mustache or hair on their face. Why? God has not made provision for it. You call it genetic or whatever you want, but God has to leave a provision for it. Otherwise, whatever food you eat, the hair is not going to grow. You can transplant it, but then it won't be yours. Somebody else has put on you. No, there should be a provision. You occasionally see people with only one arm. Why? How much calcium they take, his bone is not going to grow there, because no provision is made for that one. So in the case of holiness or knowledge or sanctification, righteousness, whatever it is, God at creation must have made a provision. It's possible for us to enjoy fellowship with God because God at creation made a provision for man and God to sit down and enjoy fellowship. That's the only reason. Otherwise, when God created man, he made a provision for a woman. That's why God said it is not good for a man to be alone, because there was a longing. God already put it there. He didn't live long enough to feel that. He lived only one day. But yet when all the animals passed through it, what was the last statement? But for Adam was not found. Yes, the longing was there. Then the next statement, God put Adam to sleep and made a woman out of the rib he has taken. See that? Amazing, isn't it? So when Eve was brought to Adam, what was his statement? We already said, this is now. But did he know that? Did he feel there was a surgery going on, and did he remember that there was a surgery, or he only felt that he went to sleep and got up from sleep? Because the inclination was there for a woman. Why do you think that all boys have an inclination towards girls and girls have an inclination towards boys? Is there a young man who does not look at a girl? Somebody was asked a question at driver's license, there's oral. Said a most beautiful woman is crossing the street. What will you do? So someone said, no, I don't know beautiful or not, I don't look at people. He was failed. You failed. You need to look at people, whether old or sick or young or child or beautiful or ugly or whatever, maybe it is a man or an animal, you need to look. If you are driving without looking, they are not going to give you the license. So you cannot pretend to be very spiritual at the driving test. So some people say, yeah, I'll smile at her. And slow it down so that I can take a good look at her. Hey, he got the license. Hey, you are acting right. So Adam took a good look at her. Oh, very good look. From head to toe, we said that, And he came to the conclusion, in spite of the little differences I see, you are born and the flesh of my flesh. He already named her. You are taken from man, therefore you shall be called a woman. Yes. It was possible for him to do that because an inclination at creation was made for a man, a longing for a woman. That you can see that as soon as from the boy stage, now you don't have to cross the boy stage, you only have to cross the infant stage, I guess, because the world has improved very much. But there is a natural inclination for the men for the boy, for the girl, and the girl for the boy. That's meant to be there. And there are some who doesn't have that one, and they should never get married. It's a sin for them to get married. What are you marrying for? No. So God has given that inclination, a spontaneous inclination of holiness which impels to God. So when a man is saved, he start having this inclination for holiness, for knowing God and all that. These facts prove that the spontaneous motion or the will may be a product of God, as well as characteristics of man. A good inclination, while a personal quality of man, is a created quality in man. It's a quality of man because God created in man. Whatever God created in me is my characteristics. That's what it is. Augustine calls it voluntariness, or the free agency, that is the spontaneous self-determination of the will. This is created by God. When he created the will, the freedom of the will is the free motion of the will as programmed by God. That's what it is. God has created the will, the ability to make a decision to love God. So it must voluntarily, automatically, spontaneously move from my heart to God's heart. That's what it is. If it does not, there is something wrong. That's what happened. The moment Adam and Eve knew God is coming, what did they do? They ran away from God. See that? Before that event, I think the moment they hear the noise of God walking, they ran to God. Now they ran away from God. Yes, so the sinful man has lost part of that voluntariness. God has induced the man, the will of man, with that natural liberty that it is neither forced nor by any absolute necessity of nature determined to good or evil. Watching children, it is very fantastic. God has blessed us with 13 grandchildren. We all got acquainted with our grandchildren and they start loving us faster than any other child. If it's a stranger's child, I have to pretend so much to make them, come to me. Still, they kind of hesitate, But for our own children, even though they have never seen me, there may be a cry or a little bit there that I see that just in an hour, the relationship is established. So the old timers say that that's blood knowing the blood. That's blood knowing the blood. That is there. It is there. You have an inclination towards your parents. It didn't take so long to develop it. Never. But to develop that inclination to the same way like a child father with a husband and wife, it's a deliberate, willful determination that I am going to love my wife. Because some men marry a woman and still love another woman, her paramour or lover, whatever you wanted to call that, So a man has to. That's why in Malayalam we say that manasundo in the ചോദ്യമുണ്ട്. ഈ സ്ത്രീയുമായി ചേർന്ന് ഒരു കുടുംബം സ്ഥാപിച്ച് ജീവിക്കുവാൻ നിനക്ക് മനസ്സുണ്ടോ? Are you willing എന്നാ ചോദിക്കുക. Are you willing to establish a Christian family with this man or this woman? They have to say, I am willing. It's a question of the will. It's not as, are you naturally inclined? Well, if it's a question of natural inclination, there is, yes, as far as she is a woman, I have some natural inclination, but to establish a home, it's a decision. It's a determination. But once I made that determination, you see, the will is so inclination. Now we have been married 46 years. 46 times more I am inclined to my wife than when I married her. I'll be honest. Every day, it brings a new, strengthening of that inclination. The older we get, that inclination, separation becomes more painful in old age than in young age. Somebody marry, second day fly to Gulf, after 2 years come for a week, see, then fly away. Separation doesn't mean a thing for them. How can they do? I don't know. It was difficult for me, I know that. But people do it. Because they have not inclined their will to stay with her. They have inclined their will to stay away from her. That's the reason. If a person has inclined to stay with, he will resign his job. Or he will take his wife along. One of the two. Yes. It all depends upon what is more valuable. Anyway, when God created man, the inclination was given so that he will be attached to God. But when sin came, that's what death means. This inclination is dead. The true knowledge is dead. The holiness is dead. The righteousness is dead. Therefore, you are now away from God. Everything that attracted you and God now broken there. So instead of attraction, there is distraction, repulsion. Isn't that terrible? Terrible. Yes, it is terrible. So Adam was you know, the Adam was created holy, and the motion towards holiness and obedience must be natural and spontaneous. In Adam, if Adam was to eat the fruit of the tree of life, no force or pressure need to be exerted, either by self or by anyone else. Man would have been naturally attracted to God, and then that attraction become so permanent. So permanent. It's so bad that man did not eat. You know. Of course, some people say that if man ate the tree of life, then we would have never known the love of God the way we know it now. What is the greatest expression of God's love for man? The sacrifice of his son. Yes. People say cross is the greatest expression of God's love. Is it? God himself. What do you mean by explain it to me? Yes. Creation. I think the moment of creation, that's the greatest expression. Because the creation was made with all the knowledge and the determination that man will fall, and then he will act contrary, and then the Creator has to become a man, and then the creature will take the hammer and the nails will thrust it through his hands and pierce through his heart. It is with this knowledge God formed that man. You think of, you are forming something, you know that after a few hours that's going to destroy you. You know. I often thought that if I was making man, because I am not, hypothetically, when the thought came, this head is going to think against me, I will just smash it like that. Then man will be flat-headed, like a chapati, And then I know that this heart is going to allow the things that I hate, then what will I do? I will just punch the heart. The heart will be a broken one. But God, knowing all that is going to happen to him, the cost, he created man. He blessed the man. So where is the grace? From that day, Bible says, the Lamb of God that was slain before or from the foundation of the earth, means from the very creation of man, or the decision to create man, Jesus Christ was set apart as a slain person. It's from that moment all the way to Calvary. Calvary is the place where it is finalized. That's all. When did Abraham feel the greatest pain? On Mount Moriah when he took the knife? Or when God came to him and told him, take your son, only begotten son Isaac, take him all the way to Mount Moriah and slay him there. At which point Abraham felt the greatest pain. Well, he was psyched enough to do that on Mount Moriah, you know that? All the 24 hours or 18 hours he was saying, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, I'm going to kill him, I'm going to do it, But when God told him, oh God, no, not me, in these hands, oh no. The other was the culmination of, the culmination of. It is like a river flowing through many mountains and hills and finally joining the ocean. At which point the river feels the greatest pain. When it joins the ocean, or when it's going up and down through many streams and many this and that and winding and all that, yes, that definitely is. So we often think that Calvary is the only point. No, Calvary is not the only point. I say Calvary is, yes, but the decision to create and the act of creation and the act of sustaining. Every day for Jesus Christ, the Son of God, was a painful because, so the love of God, often we say God so loved, and the giving was not there in Bethlehem only. No, the giving was when the Son of God was set apart as a lamb that was slain. The giving has taken place there. You know how difficult it would have been. When the Father looks at the Son, the Father sees the crown of